All right. Hey, it's Kyle Dine here again from Equal Eats, and I am absolutely thrilled and privileged to be joined by Chef Joel Schaefer. Hey, Joel.
Hey, what's happening, Kyle? Good to see you.
As always, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
And as you can see, we've got the big fair backdrop behind us because we are at the 2023 Fair Summit. It's been a really, really great weekend so far. A lot of education, a lot of support. It's just so amazing when the allergy community comes together at big events like this. And I would say if there's one superstar of the show, it's this guy. He is feeding over 500 people with
Yeah,
multiple dietary
yeah,
restrictions
yeah, yeah.
safely. What's the secret this weekend to doing that successfully?
Teamwork,
Yeah.
right? It's planning. Just like you, when you go out to dinner, you got a plan. Well, we had a plan 4 months ahead to do this event,
Wow.
so it's not something that just happened overnight.
Yeah. And was there any challenges along the way with ingredient sourcing, or
There's
should we even
always
start?
there's always challenges. So with this type of event,
Yeah.
we this is the second year we've been here, so we had a lot of stuff that we could build on. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like it was starting from last year. So the biggest challenge was one of the biggest things I said. I said, hey, when we show up this year, I want to get all the labels of every prepackaged items you use so I can verify it versus last year.
Yeah.
And we found things that weren't the same because they made changes in the year and the suppliers made changes.
Yeah.
So we had to adapt to that and make adjustments. So, I came early. You should always come early. Like you when you dine out, go early. I came 2 days early just so that I could work with them on the menus and making sure we got everything written down properly. And if any procedures or did I have to look at, could we use it? Because there was one or two things I said, no, let's just not use that.
Amazing.
We're not going to do it. We're just going to go. We're not going to try anything new. We're going to go with what worked, and we're not going to make any surprises for anybody.
Yeah. Well, I can say from a consumer standpoint, from top to bottom, it felt safe.
Yeah.
And for me, we have our allergy spider sense. And
Yeah.
just walking through the buffet,
That's funny. Yeah.
walking through the buffet
Yeah.
line, just the signage
Yeah.
was complete, and all of my questions were answered just looking at the signs. And then the staff were right there.
Yeah.
Like hawks, almost just like tongue monitors.
They
Just
were. They
making
were
sure
watching.
that
Yeah.
there's no cross contact
Yeah.
going. So kudos to you for all the work
Thank
you
you.
did, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are very appreciative.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, as you're saying, I mean, I was even, when I see all this and working with the team, and I don't know what to expect either. And I was probably just as nervous as the guests were because I don't want to get anybody sick. And I know we've tried to cover every base possible.
Yeah.
But even as a chef, you can do only what you can do. And as a customer, the same thing. You guys have your side of the game that you have to play. Basically, it's like a game, right? We're trying to navigate this, right?
Yeah.
And we all have to take responsibility for those things. And I did everything I could on my side, and so did the culinary team and the front of the house team. But we did it as a team.
Yeah. And,
Right.
and that's really the theme of this opportunity today to talk to Chef Joel is that sometimes there's a disconnect between customers and food service staff and chefs. And we want to kind of just break down some of the stigma, the questions that we might have, and really have the opportunity to ask Joel, how do we bridge that gap? How do we be better dance partners at this thing called allergy dining out? So we have some questions that were submitted in advance, which is great. We're going to go through some of those. But I guess to start off, one of the reasons why we met originally was when I was starting to get Equal Eats off the ground. I was looking for advice specifically from your perspective, from a chef. We had so much information from the allergy community of what they wanted to say, what an allergy card needs to say for them. And it was so valuable. When I talked to you and Chef Keith Norman and some other amazing people in the industry, I started to notice that the results were different of what you needed to hear versus what they wanted to say.
Exactly.
And that made it one of the most interesting design challenges of my life of how do we put all this together. It took a lot of edits, a lot of revisions.
Sure.
But maybe you could speak to that fact alone, that what we as consumers want to say is not always what you need to hear. Why is that, and what can we do better as customers?
Well, and I think, and I've heard this before myself, is that the consumer will come in and they'll say, I have all these allergies and I have a list of these allergies. Like, I've heard them all, and I've heard long lists of allergies. And right there, that part would freak me out or scares me because it's, oh my God. And I have all this stuff in my kitchen and now I'm worried about that you're going to get sick. Whereas something that I've always said this is when I was at Disney is I would rather, I mean, I still want to know what your allergies are because I have to be aware of that in the kitchen so I don't have any cross contact. But what do you usually eat? What can you eat? Because as a chef, I can take that information quickly and create something quickly, right? And I know we had a question on here that someone said, should I try to go for a modified item, or should I go for something that's safe? In my opinion, I would go for something safe, right? One, if you know it's safe and the chef knows it's safe, it's going to be safe. And we all want to have great experiences in restaurants. We want to go out and have a just phenomenal meal, and I think the chef wants to create a phenomenal meal. But when it comes down to it, you want a safe meal. So safe is best. And if you can come across a restaurant or a chef that is really creative, I mean, that can adapt and can do this safely, then maybe go for the modifications. But I start off with saying, let's go with safe. And that's what we did with the conference. If the food was safe, if it wasn't something that was easy to execute, I didn't want to do it. So that's where I went as a chef. And I think that's where a chef wants to go. If I want to keep you safe, I want it simple. I want to know what you can eat so that I can actually make that food that I have in the kitchen anyways.
So it's almost working with them, versus against them, and providing them with enough information where you can make an educated decision on what to cook for them.
Exactly.
What helps? What type of information helps in that? Obviously, what they can eat. Is there anything else that we should be disclosing, whether it's to the server or chef, right upon that?
Well, I think that what I've heard this a lot is I have allergies, but I also have preferences, and that, it's like, oh, well, I can't eat this, but I can have that. And to me, what I've done before is I said, look, I know you have a food allergy and you may have a sensitivity. I'm eliminating all of it right away. I'm not going to play the game of, oh, you could have this, but you can't have this, because that causes confusion. Especially if you're talking to a server. Which they're not trained to handle that information anyways. They're trained to maybe take the information and give it to the chef, and the chef can disseminate that. But if you say I can have these things, but I can't have this, I'd rather say I can't have any of this, but I can eat this. So let me try to figure out what I can do with you with those category of items, and not with the ones that you even had the preference. Because at Disney, we had the worst thing was people said they had allergies. And then when you got deeper into the conversation, they just were preferences. It's like, well, and because they were taking advantage of the system that we had at Disney. And that is something that causes the separation between chefs and people that want to do it. It's that, is it an allergy? Yes, it's an allergy. No, I just don't like that. Well, there's a lot of stuff I don't like. Anyways, right? Mushrooms. I'm sorry for the meatloaf.
It's all good. But it's true though, and they're almost watering it down for the rest of us when they're calling it something that it's not. Would you rather that they're calling a spade, that if it's an intolerance, say it's intolerance?
Exactly.
If it's halal diet, call it what it is. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Because everybody has a level of sensitivity. I'm gluten sensitive, but I don't have a cross contact to gluten, but so I'm not celiac. So I'm okay if it has cross contact. So I'm going to be honest. I can't have this, but I prefer not to have this. Right. So there's no cross contact. It's okay. Well, then we can do that for you, kind of stuff. So I would rather just be straight up and honest with the difference between them. Right.
Absolutely. And with that, so we have some questions that did come in advance. One was about cross contact, and let's say someone does disclose they have a food allergy or potentially celiac disease. What's the process look like on the back end at that point when you're dealing with it in terms of preventing cross contact?
Well, and this is something that if you go to a restaurant and you've done your research first, right? You should call the restaurant. You should look online. Don't trust the menus always online, because they change. So I tell you right now, don't trust menus online.
Good point.
Is that you call the place, you talk to them, and you try to actually talk to the chef. Find out if the chef is willing to talk to you about your food allergy and to pre-talk about the process. So you see how that's right. They're telling you how willing they are. Right. If a chef gets on the phone and says, "Oh yeah, I want to talk to you," and and then you also can understand the level of their knowledge and their skill at actually handling it. But in the kitchen, actually talking specifically the process, is they need to have separate pans, separate tools, possibly separate ingredients. And then they can follow that process. They either have someone trained to handle it or they handle it themselves. So that's sort of how the process looks. And if you can share that with them when you go there, I would do it prior. And say, this is what I expect is, how we can keep cross contact down. And you have like saute pans and tongs and stuff that you can have clean and sanitized to handle this. Don't expect them to do grilled foods for you. Anything out of a saute pan or covered in an oven are the two options that I would always default to, because I can wash a saute pan. I can use a tong. I can use something that I know has been sanitized properly, and I can cook that to order on a stove. I don't have any common cooking equipment that I have to deal with.
Do you like it when customers ask about Are you prepared for cross contact?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you don't understand, if they don't understand the word cross contact, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Because in our world,
Yep.
it's cross contact. It's not cross contamination.
Very different.
Two different things.
Absolutely. Maybe explain to people, because
Yeah.
it might be foreign.
So you got cross contamination, and as a chef, we've been trained on cross contamination that has to do with, you know, bacterias and viruses that I can kill. There's always called a kill step. So I can cook something to a certain temperature, and I can kill that virus or bacteria. Makes it safe. But with food allergies, it's the cross contact.
Yeah.
A protein does not break down through heat. Yeah. So it's still present even in its smallest form that we can't see. So, but most chefs, if they're not trained with food allergies, don't understand cross contact versus cross contamination. So that's sort of a terminology that will give you a better understanding. Is, do they have a level of knowledge that they understand what cross contact means?
Yeah, you come in with the educated question, you're going to find out if you have an educated staff.
Absolutely.
With that chef education, obviously there's so much more. We're dealing with this more in food service industry, of dealing with so many dietary restrictions. How are chefs being prepared for this? What is there anything going on in culinary school that is on the rise in terms of that awareness?
Well, I don't know if we had this discussion, but someone was talking about, there was someone that spoke last year here that was from the CIA, and they were talking about how do they accommodate students that have food allergies. And I'm a culinary instructor in Vegas, Culinary Academy of Las Vegas, by the way. There you go. And we had like in the last 2 or 3 sessions, we had 3 students with food allergies. They were allergic to these foods. So we had to go through the process. Okay, how allergic are you? Do you carry an EpiPen? You know, what's your intolerance level to this? And so we maybe had to navigate their training around their allergies, and it worked out. We didn't have really any major issues.
Interesting.
And the culinary schools, because these, you know, there's more allergies now, and these more young people that had allergies when they don't want to be chefs.
Yeah.
I actually talked to one in the hallway that wants to be a chef.
Way.
She's got 4 allergies to things.
Fantastic.
So how are they doing? I mean, I'm hoping we're doing the same thing as we would in a restaurant, as we would accommodate the student or the guest and find ways to continue the education so they can become chefs, because we want more chefs that know allergies and can do that for us in there. And to mitigate that is just to really even look at our menus and how we train and how we can work around the nut-free or these kind of things and make it more, you know, draw in more of those culinary students that want to be chefs, because we want more of those chefs out there, because they're already going to understand what it's like to be someone who suffer food allergies.
Well, you know, the next generation of chefs under you at your college, we were very lucky.
I would love to have my college of culinary of food allergies. That'd be great.
Absolutely. How do we spread that around?
Let's do it. We get a sponsor for that.
Seriously. You know, and you know, obviously, but we live in a world where not every chef is as fantastic as you and as educated and has food allergies to begin with. So we've had a question regarding those negative experiences where you go into a restaurant and you get refused service. We can't serve you. Why is that? Is the kitchen too small? Are they not educated? Is it too risky? What
could be all those? Yeah, could be many things. It could be, if someone refuses you service, then I would leave, because that's a total negative on one side, right? You know, they're not prepared. So how safe are you going to be in that place? All those parts that they were mentioning is, it could be a small kitchen, right? They're not trained. Not everybody's trained on this, and at the level that I may be trained, no one's, you know, at that level of understanding. And you know, or they could just have fear itself, because what and I talked to this when I did my training here, and I've talked to it before, is people with food allergy have a lot of anxiety. Just in general, right? And then since COVID, we have all more anxiety.
Fair enough.
It's a compounded thing. So, but what if you thought about the anxiety for the food service operator, the chef that has to handle the food and has to handle your life in their hands trying to create food for you? That they're living with their own anxiety around this whole environment, and they may not be able to handle that anxiety. And I could be like, I can't. I just don't have the ability to handle that physically or mentally. Because I remember a story with Disney. We had a young sous chef, and he, you know, he was young. He was probably just started as a sous chef for like a few weeks. And they had this kid come in, a milk allergy, and he did everything he was supposed to do, followed the program. Kid got cross contact, anaphylaxis. He was so worried. He goes in there. They're leaving this. This is a story. It's a great story. He's at the back of the ambulance, standing there. He's so worried, and other people around, and the kid was, you know, having bad reaction. But what he said, the kid said, "When can I come back and eat at Disney?" I was like, it gives me like chill coat my throat. I'm
Oh my
like,
goodness.
really? So
I
they
wanna
go
come
off,
back.
they take care, the kid, and they actually come back because Disney's great about, the kid
Yeah,
came back, they
yeah,
got better. But the chef wanted to quit.
really.
He wanted to quit. He says, I can't do this. I can't fit. So I had to talk to him and I spent time with him and
Yeah.
said, hey, you can do this. Maybe we'll give you some training, maybe step down for a little bit. And he ended up being a great chef.
Yeah.
But that experience to him was traumatic. So imagine for the family, the traumatic, but how about the person that actually cooked the food?
Yeah.
We have the trauma that we have to live with
Yeah.
too if we make a mistake. And we might be too worried about that. And that could be why some people say, I can't serve you. I can't deal with that.
And that's a vantage point I'm sure a lot of us have never even considered
Mhm.
when we're ordering food of
Mhm.
what we're putting the whole line through
Yep.
in terms of our requests
Yep.
and what that means when, I've got multiple severe food allergies and I am putting my life into someone's hands and making some requests for 1999, right? So like
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
it's a disconnect that we have. But thank you for,
sure.
and I think that empathy from our standpoint when we advocate to work with the staff, this is where it all comes down to. If we come in demanding, you better make it safe versus, we have these allergies and, we've done this before, happy to work with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's some safe options. You're starting at a really much better place.
Oh, absolutely.
On all sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of, this is an interesting question in terms of advocacy, and this will probably be our last one. How can restaurants, or we see different menus and regulations around the world where they're actually showing allergens now on menus, top 14 in Europe.
Yep.
Is there more that restaurants can do to make these type of changes in the restaurants?
Well, I talk about transparency, but I talk about simplicity. Like the menu that we had here, we had pretty simple ingredients, and chefs want to be fancy and they want to do all these great food and they want to add 25,000 ingredients. Do we really need that to make high level food taste great? I mean, yes, if you're in a fine dining, go for it. Plan though for those guests to make modifications.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me, and I've always talked this many back in the day, with before vegan and everything was really get going, is create, to me as a chef, create as many vegan side dishes as you can make, because you already eliminate egg and milk, two of the big ones, and of course you might have nuts, but you don't need those in a side dish. So focus on some high quality, really cool side dishes that are vegan already, right? So eliminate 2 allergies, don't make them gluten, don't put breadcrumbs on it. But then I can always add a simple protein to that. So have simple unseasoned proteins. I told the chefs today, have some unseasoned chicken and a piece of fish, or have a piece of meat or whatever. So when a guest comes into the allergy and they say they have these allergies, hey, I got these really nice side dishes, because side dishes are usually made separately.
Yeah.
I have these nice and warm, and then hey, piece of chicken, we got that simple. I got that unseasoned. I can do something simple to it, or I can do something simple, and I can create a nice little dish for you.
It's very modular.
Very modular, yeah. So it's components. It's side dishes with a protein. If you're vegan, you already have a bunch of side dishes. That makes it a vegan meal. If you have allergies, you eliminate milk and egg. You milk, seafood if you're using chicken. So you have options.
Swap
without making it hard on yourself. It's embedded in your menu.
Nice.
Right.
I love it. I think the last question, we get a lot of advice from other parents, from other people in the food allergy community, which is always coming from a good place. And that proper dining out procedure is usually call ahead, make a reservation, put it on your reservation, tell the hostess, tell the manager, tell the server, tell the chef. In your eyes, what is a good process for
Keep it and get one of these
realistically to stay
do
safe?
That and get one of those cards right there, Equal Eats. Have one of those with you. This will help a lot, especially what you do with all the languages that you do it in. Because traveling, I mean, we haven't traveled much, of course, since COVID. I know this is going to help us when we travel, right? Because we can get different languages. But what you just said is you still have to have those protocols. You can't just pop into a restaurant, right? Don't pop into a restaurant. Just don't do that unless you're like on an emergency and you're out traveling and all of a sudden you have to go somewhere. I always suggest if you're somewhere and you have to go out to eat, go to a chain restaurant. Many of the chain restaurants at least have some basic training in place. I've heard a lot of success with them. I know people. I actually had a story this other day that people were in DC. They had reservations. They did all their legwork. They get there and they can't accommodate you. It's like, we did all this work. There was like 10 of them. They had no place to eat. So they walked around. They ended up at Chipotle.
Oh, really?
They knew we could eat there because they had batch stuff and they had stuff in the back and they all ate together, but they had somewhere to eat. But they went to a chain restaurant.
So overall, speaking up, making it very clear, and going with safe options to begin with.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Safe
fantastic.
options.
Well, I bet we could just keep talking and diving deeper and deeper,
Absolutely.
but I really appreciate this opportunity, just as someone with food allergies, just to dig deeper. Hopefully we can talk more in the future, have more questions. But if you haven't heard of Joel Schaefer, who is truly the architect of Disney World's amazing allergy management protocols and the whole system, he's the guy. So I can't shout enough about how great he is, and his knowledge. And if you haven't heard about his cookbook at home with your allergy chefs, you should check it out, because this is the book. It is just so comprehensive, and maybe you could just give a little bit of some information. What type of dishes does this cover?
Yeah, so this book is, I have two books. I have one that's called Serving People with Food Allergies, Kitchen Management, Menu Creation, which is for food service operators, and I'm having the second revision coming out within the next 6 months.
Cool.
So I'm revising it now with new stuff with camps and stuff with colleges and stuff with actually working conventions like we did here.
So important.
And this book here, this is our consumer book. So this is for, the housewife, the husband, or whoever, people with food allergies. And this is really covering all the common food items like waffles and pancakes and chicken piccata and meatloaf and stuff like that, you have people that have all these allergies. You have different ones, and you may have a daughter with different one, and so, and someone's trying to cook 5 meals. This will solve your problems.
And as I can attest, after eating your recipes, not only are you going to eat safely, but you're going to eat well.
Yeah.
And don't we deserve that? Yeah. Right? I'm so sick and tired of eating food that's not good, not
doesn't
tasty.
taste good. And it teaches you how to cook at the same time. Good technique.
And that's how you know you have a true chef that not only wants to keep you safe, but it wants to feed you well. So Chef Joel Schaefer is that guy. So super happy to thank you for your time today. Absolutely. And really appreciate it.
Nice chatting with you again.
You too. Thanks everybody for joining today. Bye.